Hey all, I'd like to talk to you about the talent trees, in particular the Brewmaster Spec tree. If you like presentations and infographics, then this is the place for you. This talk will be more geared about design and opportunity and less about power and tuning. Before we talk about those opportunities in the Brewmaster Spec tree and what might be nice enhancements or changes, we need to do some analysis on the existing tree. We'll break it down in the following order. What is Blizzard's design intent for the Brewmaster monks? What does the skeleton of the spec tree look like and what can we glean from it? The interconnected talents and where they are placed on the talent tree. First off, what is Blizzard's design intent? To understand what Blizzard is thinking, let's read what they posted when they originally released the monk trees. They stated, "Our goal with the class tree is to allow a player to construct different visions of their character and play with the hybrid nature and cheerful mobility that exemplifies a monk. For Brewmaster, our primary goal was to allow players the flexibility to lean into different flavors, to emphasize a brew-heavy playstyle or go the way of the wily martial arts master, while also providing situationally interesting decisions for survivability. Three things immediately jump out to me: brew-heavy, martial arts master, and situational decisions for survivability. There's a fourth one that jumps out, which is cheerful mobility. However, let's set that to the side. While the points clearly jump out, they are a bit vague and we'll have to make some assumptions. For example, what is brew heavy or what is martial arts master? I'm going to put what I believe each one is. Of course, always open for discussion. If so, put it in the comments. However, for the sake of this, I'll lead with my thoughts. Brew heavy consists of anything that has brew in the name, anything that interacts with keg smash. For example, Breath of Fire interacts with keg smash. Purifying Brew has brew in the name. In my head, this gameplay loop revolves around leveraging keg smash and purifying stagger damage. Martial arts master, on the other hand, is anything that has a kick or a punch. In my head, the gameplay loop for this is a combat rotation that emphasizes punches and kicks that somehow reduce stagger damage. Lastly, the situational survivability consists of self-healing, which is just sustain on top of stagger, and then defensive cooldowns. With that established, let's take a look at the skeleton of the Brewmaster Spec tree. The first thing that I noticed was the symmetry of the structure. A symmetric structure signals similar path choices. When we take that symmetry of the tree and overlay it with the design description we have from Blizzard, it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to assume our two distinct styles of play would each take one side of the tree. So one very interesting thing to call out is this cube structure. The reason why it's really interesting is it allows for a core talent to be placed at the top, branched in two different directions, with an optional center node providing a common point between both sides, culminating in a mini capstone. I think this is a really cool structure, and you can do a lot with the design of it. What makes this even more exciting is the ability to branch from it, creating more choices available to the user so they can empower or diverge their vision for their character. I could go on, but let's leave that for another time. Okay, back on topic. With a cursory glance at the skeleton, let's do a quick pass through some of the core abilities. We won't be diving into the talents. Instead, we'll be visually representing what talents interact with each other. This will enable us to visualize and map our talents to our playstyles later. Since it's the first talent in the tree, let's start with Keg Smash. I've highlighted the talent nodes that interact with Keg Smash. There's 3 talents directly empowering it, while Breath of Fire leverages it. Purifying Brew, like Breath of Fire, is another skill that leverages Keg Smash. However, it's much more impactful and deserves its own look. Let's review them now. We have 4 talents that reduce its cooldown in some manner, and 2 talents that provide charges. Blackout Kick is up next. This is an interesting one as it has 2 talents that allow Blackout Kick to empower other abilities, another talent, Staggering Strikes, that provides additional utility to it, and finally, 2 more talents that empower it directly. And then we have Stagger, the unique tanking component to Brewmasters. This allows the class to shrug off large hits, smooths out their damage intake, making them every healer's best friend. Being core to the class, it has the most talents to interact with. 2 that provide stat increases based on stagger amount, 5 talents that somehow reduce stagger or heal you, and lastly there's the interplay with Nizao the Black Ox. We'll close our visual analysis with a look at our sustain and defensive cooldowns. We have a modifier to Fortifying Brew, 2 talents for Zen Meditation, 3 talents that provide some sort of healing, and then 2 talents for Celestial Brew. With that extremely brief overview on talent grouping, let's lay them out all together to help us get a better understanding of the relationships between those talents. By color coding all those talents, we should ideally see those relationships visually jump out at us. On second thought, that might be a bit overwhelming explosion of colors. Let's try and provide a bit of context. Some talents on the tree have multiple touch points. I've tried to represent the triggering ability as a ring around the talent in the case where it interacts with multiple abilities. For instance, Cake Smash reduces the cooldown of Purifying Brew. And then on some choice nodes, the choices could relate to different talent groupings. For example, Strength of Spirit and Guide Plin's Imperial Brew support healing, and the other, Stagger. Lastly, let's clear up the color on the defensives, as that will reduce the visual clutter. My hope when I originally started my visual analysis was to see a picture with similar groupings of colors. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work out quite that way. But alas, I think with a bit of shuffling, yeah, I went there, we can adjust it to build a bit more cohesion. Drawing back to our mirrored tree, I'm going to declare one side as Brew and one side as Martial Arts. Being that there are a bunch of Brew talents on the left, I'm going to assume that that side should be the Brew heavy playstyle, and then therefore the right should be the Martial Arts. Starting at the top and working down, the first thing I would do would swap Hit Scheme and the Rushing Jade Wind / Special Delivery optional node. This doesn't do anything point-wise, as you get the talents anyways, but what it does do is it starts to align the talents more towards the playstyle. Next, we'll take the defunct speed bump nodes, I might get more into these later, and swap those also to match the ones we just changed. Lastly, I would swap the left and right capstone branches, aligning the additional keg charge and reduce cooldown on brews from the talents Weapons of Order and Anvil and Stave. Those simple swaps provide a variety of enhancements, mainly in the theming. However, that theming provides more intuitive pathing. On the brew side, you now have Black Ox Brew to Anvil and Stave, both cooldown reductions supporting a more logical pairing, especially when above it is an additional Purifying Brew charge. Is that too much cooldown reduction for you? Well, you can choose Bob and Weave or Path Down the Breath of Fire side. Then on the martial arts side, you have Training in the Zao into High Tolerance, both logical stat boosters based on your stagger. Again, you can bow out of that double dipping on stagger stats by choosing Light Brewing. For a bit more complexity, we could adjust a few of the mid-tier talents. Shifting Face Palm to the optional node on the brew side makes a ton of sense thematically, and it also makes sense as an option since there are already other ways to reduce your brew cooldowns. The choice of how you reduce these cooldowns is up to you. Next, you have an interesting trio of skills. The choice node Shadowboxing Treads, Fluidity of Motion, Shocking Blow, and then Celestial Flames. I've anchored Celestial Flames in the optional node in the center of the cube, mirroring a defensive option from the brew side, i.e. Fortifying Brew. Now the tricky part, and this is mostly because Shocking Blow is so unintuitive. It has no theme, and it just sticks out like a sore thumb. If I have to, I would place Shocking Blow as a speed bump to counter strike and advance Shadowboxing choice node up. Anyway, those are my thoughts. One might say the brew side is overpowered now, with this tighter theming and coupling of abilities. But I think of it more as an opportunity to grow the martial arts side. You have to remember, the martial arts playstyle does not really exist right now. Well, at least per my definition. It would take more than shifting of existing talents around to properly build out that playstyle. Don't fret though. I plan to put on a tinfoil hat and do a deeper dive into what a martial arts playstyle could look like in another video. But as a teaser, imagine Shocking Blow triggering off Rising Sun Kick. I'll just let that sink in for a second. Yeah, it would be pretty awesome. I think this has two main advantages. One, it does something very simple but intuitive by leveraging the base monk skill set. Brew doesn't really use Rising Sun Kick now, but why doesn't it? Why? Like, there's skills in the class tree for it, let's do it. And two, it adds variety into the rotation, leading to what I believe would be some satisfying blackout kicks. Imagine pairing this with Blackout Combo. This makes Rising Sun Kick the powerful chain starter. And let's not forget about Shadowboxing Treads. That turns it into a 3-target cleave. You see how a simple change in the trigger can take an orphan talent and make it into a powerful option into the martial arts playstyle. Thank you for watching. And with that, I'll release you back to the wild.